Welcome back to the Cordell Cordell and Men's Divorce Podcast. I'm Scott Trout, CEO and Managing Partner of Cordell Cordell. We continue to bring you information for guys before, during, and after divorce. Anything related to family law, we're talking about it during this twice-a-week podcast now that we're doing this during COVID in week 30. Continue to look out for our November virtual town hall. I'll give you more information about that at the conclusion of our podcast. And today is no different in terms of the tips we're going to give you, but always as I start my podcast, keep in mind that do not take this as a substitute for a consultation or legal advice with an attorney who really focuses exclusively on family law. I've talked about that for weeks and weeks. And including before this during our seminars in the evening. No attorney-client relationship. We want you to seek out a consult. Your case, your facts, your circumstances would often and likely dictate something different as a result. But again, this is so great informational. We've been getting great advice from our panel of attorneys from around the country at Cordell Cordell, including the UK. And today is no different, but keep in mind that if you want a consultation, you can find us on the web at cordellcordell.com, or you can reach us at 866 Dad's Law, 866 Dad's Law. Again, also on social media. You can find this podcast, as you did, as well as all of the rest over the last 30 weeks on our YouTube channel, where you can see video and podcasts and listen and get some great tips and information. So let's get started today. I'm joined by Jennifer Wallner Saltzman. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. We're talking about a topic, honestly, that we really haven't dove into very much in a podcast over the last 30 weeks, which is mediation. And I know a lot of people hear it and they are confused by it, and it certainly means something different to each person. And particularly, depending upon where you are, it could be Pennsylvania, it could be, like you said, Jersey or Florida, or in many other states. When I'm practiced in Georgia, it was mandatory. And so we'll get to that. So maybe we just start out simply and inform guys listening right now, let's overcome whatever erroneous information they've got. But what is mediation in family law?
Well, mediation in family law can be different things depending where you are. But in essence, it's when you and the other party go before a third party neutral, who's typically an attorney. That person doesn't have to be, but the two of you with your attorneys go before this third party who's solely there to try and help you resolve the issues. And the third party is not meant to take a side, but he or she is really just there to make sure that the issues are on the table and to see what can be done to bring the parties closer together. And it can be with respect to one issue that's very discrete, or it can be with respect to a big case with a lot of different issues, ranging from divorce issues to children's issues. So it can be on a grand scale, or it can be on a very small scale.
Yeah. Early on, I want to say it was like week 2 of COVID, I was talking to one of our attorneys in Utah, Jonathan Wynn, about unique opportunities to try to get cases resolved. And we did just briefly touch on mediation. And maybe you can talk about how mediators are selected. Maybe, you certainly can come to an agreement, or you could be very deliberative to find a retired judge. I've used a retired judge locally, who practiced in family law that I practiced in front of. So I knew what we were getting, and I knew what they liked to do, and I knew kind of the decisions that they would typically make. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how mediators are selected, the guys listening.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with what you said. Typically, the best mediators in my experiences are either family law practitioners who a portion of their practice is dedicated to mediation, or retired judges or retired masters who are no longer in the court system, but they would have been somebody where your case would have gone before. They're just not in that role now. So in my experience, who the mediator is very important to the success of the outcome. And the more experience that the mediator has in family law, then I think you're more likely to get a positive outcome and hopefully a resolution.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. I think if you get an opportunity to try and handpick your mediator. I know of a few that depending upon my issues, obviously I'm going to really think through that. If I've got a maintenance case or an alimony, I'm not going to pick a certain judge that I know, because I know historically, the max that they're going to hit on and what typically types of, decisions that they'd hand down. If it's a custody and I've got an advantage, I just think there's so many opportunities for guys when they're selecting it, but you may run into an issue where you have an experience similar to like you, who may also know the judge you're trying to pick and not like it. So it becomes a little bit of a difficult, and it's maybe a game of trying to select. And you could always ask someone else to pick a third party, but there's, maybe we'll get to the risks, the pros and the cons. But
Sure.
one thing that came to mind is what I tell clients about mediation is how long does it last? When I was in Georgia, I would tell the clients, well, it could last 3 minutes or 10 hours. It really just depends. Now, we had some minimum requirements. I think you had to good faith get in there for 3 hours. But typically, in your experience, in the areas in the states that you practice, how long is it
Sure.
taking?
Well, I kind of echo your sentiment. I think that, when it's a court-ordered mediation, typically you just have to show up and have a good faith, 15, 20 minutes, and that would be sufficient. So that in Florida, for example. But if you select a private mediator, which that's in Florida, for example, that's an option. You go before, a retired judge, a really good mediator, and it can last, and depending on your issues, it can last anywhere from 3, 6, 10 hours. And sometimes you even schedule a second or third day if you have, complex business issues. So it's not one size fits all. I think mediation can really be tailored to your particular case. And you can also schedule it such that you're just going to deal with discrete issues depending on your jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions bifurcate the cases and you're only ever dealing with one issue, like Pennsylvania, where I practice. But on the flip side, Florida, where I've also practiced, all the issues are together, so you can really decide how you're going to present the issues to a judge, but to a mediator. But it really is going to depend on your case and the buy-in of the parties. How do they want to resolve it? Do you want to use mediation? And maybe you do, and maybe you don't. So that's really going to dictate how long it is. I've been in 10-hour mediations, and I've been in 15-minute mediations. It really depends.
I can, as I'm thinking through this and I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone listening, I'm thinking, well, why do I need it? And I have talked about, and you and everyone else here in the firm, we probably talked more about mediation than we ever have in our lives. And simply because of what COVID has done to the court system, particularly, there are other advantages I want to hear about and maybe perhaps why someone would choose mediation. But I just wanted to throw out there is that, especially when I was talking with Jonathan Wynn 28 weeks, 29 weeks ago, we did find it, and I think also Rosario in San Diego, that it was really a real good way to get a resolution while the courts were closed. For example, here in St. Louis County, we're still stuck in phase 1. We've been bouncing between phase 0 and 1 for about 26 weeks. We can't get out of it, which means there are no in-person hearings. There's really no trials being handled. Some judges are trying to do it via Zoom who are really comfortable with the technology and also, the privacy and confidential nature of it, making sure it's secure.
For some dads out there, the coronavirus pandemic has become a pretext to limit access to their children. Other dads have been pushed out of key decisions affecting their children's lives. If you're one of those dads, Cordell Cordell is here for you, as always, but with expanded services. We can meet you in person or by video conference on weekdays, evenings, or weekends. Our goal is to step up our service to meet your needs now.
So mediation has become a great conversation piece to try to get a resolution for clients who just don't want to wait and see what happens. So perhaps you can also talk about why else someone would consider mediation in addition to the COVID things.
Sure. Well, I absolutely agree with you with respect to COVID. I think another reason why some people like mediation is it really offers certainty. And, we all know we go to a trial, we might, know the judge, we may have had a similar set of facts, but the reality is no one's ever had that exact set of facts in front of that judge with the other side. So, it's always, no matter how much experience you have, in my opinion, no matter how much trial work you do, there's a degree of uncertainty. You just don't know because it's one person deciding your case. And I really find that mediation is the opposite of that. You have control over the outcome. The case only resolves when you agree to it. So it enables you to prioritize what's important to you, what's not important to you. And again, speaks to the quality of the mediator that you're using, but it really gives you control. It gives you control over a process, which, as we know and our clients know, can feel really out of control. And so it kind of helps you take the power back a little bit in your case. And like specifically, if we're talking about children's issues, those can be difficult to sometimes throw before a judge, because you may have a really great case, but at the end of the day, the judge may just give you a really one-size-fits-all schedule. Maybe didn't hear, your child's, sleeping schedule or feeding schedule. He or she may just say, this is a case, you're going to get my normal schedule. But in mediation, it's the opposite. You can really just tell a mediator, this is what's important to me, and then try and resolve your case where you at least get a few things or some things that are important to you. And the same would go for divorce issues. So, for me, and the way I explain it to my clients is it's really certainty and control over the outcome. And obviously we all have, more risk tolerance than others. And so it's just a good thing for clients to consider. And, some people like that. Some people are willing to roll the dice. But I'd say that's one of the, aside from getting finality and how that's important with COVID, it's also, having certainty and knowing the outcome rather than, putting your evidence out there and waiting sometimes weeks, months for a judge to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, I've told clients, going before a judge, it's they're making a decision on your children, your property, your pension. They don't know you. They don't know your kids. And it is a risk. And you're risking whether or not the judge is paying attention, whether the judge really cares. They've just heard 4 other cases this week. They're tired. They really put the effort into it. And it shows perhaps when a judge just goes, well, this is just a standard schedule. Well, it really shouldn't be, right? So you do get the opportunity, as you suggest, to try to take that away from, and control some, where a mediator really will dig to try to create a custom tailored result where, to the extent possible, everyone walks away somewhat happy. I always say divorce is about degrees of losing. There is no winner. It's really how you're going to walk away with less. I've never seen a case where someone gets 100% of the property and 100% of the custody and 100% of the fees. It just doesn't happen. They may get close, but they don't get it all. So someone's always unhappy on both sides. So sure. I think that's a really good point to talk about control and certainty to the extent that you can. And I think one other thing, as I was thinking through it, listening, is I had a case where last year, even before COVID, it was really important for us to get this resolved before the end of the year. And we weren't going to get a trial setting until spring at that point. So we had to get a mediator. We knew that this was our only chance. The other side didn't know one of the reasons we were trying to get this resolved, but there was something in 2020, we didn't want part of the marriage and consider marital property. Successfully did it. And now there's a cost to it, but it's one of those things where guys, I think, in family law aren't presented with that opportunity. And that's why I think this is such a great topic to talk about, and that they should, facilitate and have that conversation, which raises the next question is, what would be the cons? What are the negatives to mediation for guys? It's not all, flowers and pretty sunshine and rainbows. There's some cons to mediation. So what are those?
Sure. I think the biggest con, and it kind of speaks to what you said, no one gets it all, but, we're practitioners. This is what we do. Every day we live and breathe this, so we know it. But sometimes I think our clients, rightfully so, want to go before a judge and really want to, have their day in court. And sometimes that really is worthwhile, and sometimes it's not. And so I think, in my experience, just sort of the regret of feeling like maybe you made too many compromises, or you would have gotten a better outcome if you went to trial. That's a negative, because, we can never tell you what the outcome would have been, obviously, if you went to trial. But, living with that, I think, is a con, because, sometimes, our clients, they want to try their case. They want to present the facts. And so you are giving that up. And so in my experience, that's sort of the buyer's remorse or the regret. It is a con, and you may have done better, and that's something you also
right.
have to understand. So, that's sort of the struggle, and that's what I've advised my clients, when I'm trying to counsel them to make a decision. You're not going to get your day in court, and are you going to be comfortable with that? So it's definitely a consideration that you really have to think about.
It's like any settlement. It's, when I would run through an agreement in court, and I always put my client on the stand, and I always say to them, and it's very similar to mediation, I said, you understand that we're waiving our right to a trial, and that the result may have been better, it may have been worse, it may have been the same. Who knows? It's the unknown. but the level of certainty, finality, sometimes mental health, physical health, just having it over, it's a uncalculable, or I guess, benefit, right? We can't figure that out, but it's worth it. But it is, I agree. And some people feel like, the uncertainty, oh gosh, I wish I would have done this. Maybe I could have gotten better. You're always going to have that. And you're going to have a friend. I love that. So my friend's sister told me that they got this. And it's always going to happen. So I always try to tell my clients to ignore what other people say, because everyone's different. And that's what I think I love about family law, is that to me, every case is different. The results tend to be different. There's some, child support calculations and some things that we can fairly predict, but I think that's of value, really. But I think also, when we think about mediation, it is kind of an interesting way and path for them to just get resolution right away. But the con is, again, it's regret. And so maybe I think you can give guys some takeaways as we kind of wrap up our talk today and our podcast on mediation. Kind of what should they be thinking here? Is it for everybody? Is that something they should have a conversation with their attorney? What should they be doing as a takeaway?
I think as a takeaway, it's important to, and we didn't quite touch on this, and the mediation that I think, you and I are suggesting is always to have an attorney. So there are some times where people consider mediation without attorneys. And I do think that, while I think resolution offers something really great, you still want to have an attorney advise you what are possible outcomes, what's a good settlement for you. So a takeaway would be, mediation really should be done in tandem with an attorney. And the second thing, just as a takeaway, is in my opinion, I think it's always worth a conversation, because a good attorney is going to tell you, is mediation going to be effective in your case? Is there enough buy-in? Is it worth the investment? So I think it's always worth a conversation, and any attorney is going to tell you, is this something you should do or not?
Yeah, I agree. So the one thing I also, and the clients, and I get, they feel a sense of pressure that they have to get it resolved in mediation. So I'm the onset, I said, look, you have any doubt, we walk away, period. We can always come back to the table later and try to mediate again, but you've got to never feel that like I'm compelled to settle, because that's the worst ever. In anything, whether it's a settlement conference at court and you're trying to talk through it, whether informal mediation or formal mediation, then for me, the takeaway and listening, it's worth it. Now, there's a cost, right? You have to pay the mediator, you pay your attorneys, but hey, for me, it's a free look into the other side's case. I get to hear exactly what they're saying, what they're complaining about you, what their positions are, why they think they get it. We don't like it. Now I'm prepared. So I like it. I do informal mediation where I don't have a neutral. I bring the other attorney and their client to the table, and it's just the four of us. I'm a big fan of that. So I like mediation, whether it's formal or informal. So this is why it's really a great topic today to discuss. So thanks for giving great insight to guys and kind of breaking it down in a real, easy to understand way and getting them some takeaways. So thanks for joining today.
Of course. I enjoyed our conversation. I hope it was helpful to our listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. So continue to tune into these podcasts where we're going to bring you just concrete examples like today, things that you can write down, take away, and really facilitate a further conversation with your attorney. And that's what this is all about. It's really giving you and equipping you with the information that you need to make really good decisions moving forward to position you and to be in the best position possible to achieve your goals. So find us on the web at CordellCordell.com. Give us a call, 866-DADS-LAW. Until next time, have a great week.